The following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers. This is the TF Fangy coming to you with what will hopefully be a quick and successful video review. And today we're going to be taking a look at a Transformers action figure that a lot of fans and collectors, from what I've seen on the reviews, they either completely like this figure or they have mixed emotions about it. It's a figure that many fans and collectors have enjoyed, but as far as being a must-have Transformers action figure, some fans have said that they want to have it. Some others have passed on it. So even though there haven't been too many negative thoughts on this figure, it's into the category of being one of the more moderately desired Transformers action figures, for lack of a better vocabulary. And as the title of the video has already revealed, it is the Transformers Studio Series Transformers 1 Deluxe Class Starscream. So yeah, this is the Deluxe Class sized action figure of Starscream based on his appearance from the most recent Transformers film to be released at movie theaters, Transformers 1, which, to my knowledge, is the first ever and currently only Transformers film to be entirely done in CGI animation. There was a lot of hope that Transformers 1 would be successful enough that there would be a sequel movie, possibly titled Transformers 2, but whether or not Transformers 2 will ever exist is a toss-up and left up at this point. Hasbro announced last year that they wanted to move away from movies to promote the lines of merchandise that they sell to the general public. So whether or not if and when the next Transformers film will be released, if it will be a sequel to Transformers 1 or will be another new Transformers story already to be told. As of this video's recording in November of 2025, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, here is Studio Series Starscream inside his box. That's nice artwork of Starscream in his robot mode and his jet mode. And there he is inside the box. He transforms back and forth from between robot mode and alternate mode in just 30 steps. He is part of the Studio Series line, since Studio Series is based off Transformers from the Transformers films and video games. You got the same artwork of Starscream here on this side of the box. On this side of the box, you got the artwork of that's on the front of this box with Starscream wrapped around to the side. Alright, and you've got a screenshot from Transformers 1. I don't know if that's the moment when Starscream appeared on film or what. In Transformers 1, it's revealed that Starscream was one of 3 sub-commanders of a group of defenders of planet Cybertron that were known as the Gaurd. And to put it bluntly, they would later be all of the Transformers who would become the Decepticons. The one who wasn't with them was, of course, D16, who became Megatron and the Decepticons' leader. Starscream transformed Megatron to... it's been a while since I've watched Transformers 1. Sorry about that. So, as I was about to say, it's been a while since I've watched Transformers 1, and I can't remember if Megatron punched Starscream in the face or not, or if he kicked his butt when he, along with Orion, Pax, Elita 1, and Bumblebee, they all asked for the High Guard to help them take over Iacon City so that they could stop Sentinel Prime. By the end of the film, Starscream and the other members of the High Guard all decided to follow Megatron on when they saw how ruthless in battle he was and how he murdered Sentinel Prime. I am in cold blood. And so, yeah, that was a joke. That was one of the nods to the original Transformers Generation 1 franchise, where the Decepticons were always built as military soldiers, while the Autobots were built as workers. And I love that how they portrayed that did that nod to the original Transformers Generation 1 franchise, where it was revealed that the Decepticons were fighters built originally to defend Cybertron and were basically military soldiers, while the Autobots were workers and laborers who basically held jobs. So yeah, I love that dynamic between the Autobots and the Decepticons, that the Decepticons were always built to fight, but the Autobots only fight just to survive, and they aren't fighters at the heart of it. If they didn't have to fight, then the Autobots would choose not to, but the Decepticons are so ruthless, the Autobots have no choice but to try and stop them. At least that's what the plot for a sequel movie would be for Transformers 1. But yeah, that's what the foundation was laid in Transformers 1 when the Transformers had to defeat Sentinel Prime and evict the Quintessons from planet Cybertron. But bringing focus back here to Starscream, here he is on the back of the box. Here his robot mode and his alternate mode of a jet, and it's loosely based on his design from the Bumblebee movie, in which he kind of sort of looks like his Generation 1 alt mode of the Tetrajet, at which most recently the Transformers War for Cybertron Trilogy Siege Starscream action figure that was released in 2019 had that Generation 1 Tetrajet design. And so the Cybertronian jet alt mode that Starscream had for both the Bumblebee movie and now for Transformers 1, it's kind of a mashup of an Earth-style jet with the Generation 1 Cybertron alt mode of the Tetrajet. It's a design I personally don't really care for. I would rather if Starscream didn't transform into an Earth jet, that he transform into the more Tetrajet style alt mode that his Generation 1 action figure had. This type of jet, it also, one could argue, is loosely based on his appearance from Transformers Cybertron, which is one of my all-time favorite Transformers cartoon shows. But for me personally, I don't know. I just don't really enjoy the design of it that well. But regardless of that, I still think this is a fun action figure of Starscream to have in your collection, and I really, really hope that, just like a vast majority of his action figures in the past have been, I hope that Starscream gets at least gets repainted into Thundercracker and Skywarp. So far, in terms of characters from Transformers 1 that have been released in the Studio Series line, Megatron and Starscream, who are both deluxe class-sized Transformers, they're the only Decepticons from Transformers 1 who've been released in the Studio Series line. Once Arachnid gets released, she is also going to be a deluxe figure, even though Arachnid was Sentinel Prime's assistant and right-hand bot. Arachnid was a Decepticon when she was introduced to the Transformers in Transformers Prime back in, I want to say, between 2010 and 2011. But then, she's being marketed as a Decepticon in the Studio Series line. So even with Arachnid's inclusion, that's still only 3 Decepticons. So again, I hope that TF1 Starscream does get repainted into at least Thundercracker and Skywarp down the line, because like past action figures of Starscream, such as his Siege and Earthrise Voyager class figures from 2019 and 2020, because of the sheer amount of Decepticon Seeker Jets who made up the Cybertron High Guard in the Transformers 1 film, Starscream could be repainted the same number of times that his past action figures have been. And whether or not that happens is uncertain at this point. But if Starscream were to be, if this mold were to be used 5 or more times, I most likely would probably buy them all just because I'm an avid fan of the Seeker Jets. So, taking a look at the back of Starscream's box, you got a screenshot of him from the Transformers 1 film, and again the product photos of his robot mode and alt mode and number of steps he transforms. And on the top of the box, his one-sentence bio reads, "Starscream eats High Guard fighting corruption from the shadows." So yeah, the High Guard they didn't appear until towards the end of Transformers 1. And along with Starscream, even though Starscream is the quote-unquote leader of the High Guard, the reason why I use quotes is because after Starscream, the other Decepticons who are the second and third highest ranking members of the High Guard were Soundwave and Shockwave. And even though Shockwave was more the scientist and Soundwave the communications officer, I honestly can't see Starscream being the military leader of these guys, and that going back to day 1 of the Transformers franchise, that's always been the joke, that Starscream isn't a capable leader, unlike Megatron. So I do love how they continue that dynamic with Transformers 1. So with that out of the way, hey, let's hurry up and get Starscream out of his box and take a close look at him in his robot mode. Alright, so here is Starscream out of his box and transformed into his robot mode. He comes with 4 accessory pieces of the 2 null rays that attach to his shoulders, and his laser gun is made up of 2 pieces. The cannon that sits on the underside of his the jet nose of his alternate mode, and then the part that he actually holds with, which is the this part right here, is the tail fin of his jet mode. Oh, and unfortunately, you do have to attach them like this, where the blue cannon is sitting on top of the white tail fin, because it attaches using a rectangular peg, and it doesn't fit inside Starscream's hand without the 5mm peg on the tail fin. So technically, you could leave them attached. You could attach them to Starscream's back if you want his only weapons to be the null rays on his shoulders, but then it does mean he has a backpack that sticks out really far. Alright, I'm just showing it off in the mode he comes packaged in right out of the box. But yeah, overall, a pretty neat looking Cybertron on alt mode version of Starscream. His paint job, it's a blend of both his Generation 1 paint job while having a somewhat a new paint job for the Transformers 1 film. And for what it is, being a deluxe-sized action figure of Starscream, I think the designers did a fairly good job making Starscream screen accurate to his appearance in Transformers 1, however brief it was. The screen time that Starscream joins, because he appears so late in the Transformers 1 movie, you can count using in minutes the amount of screen time that Starscream has in the Transformers 1 film. Yeah, pretty decent Starscream action figure. Most Starscream action figures that we've gotten in recent years that were targeted at older adult age Transformers collectors have been Voyager class size or larger, since that's the average size that Starscream is compared to most other Transformers action figures. So for me personally, it was a bit of a surprise and kind of a letdown that Starscream was done in deluxe class size, just like Megatron. I would have preferred if the Decepticons had been done in Voyager class size from Transformers 1. And I just think it would have been, if Voyager class size, I think a lot more collectors would be after these action figures than they are. As I showed off a few weeks ago, as I showed off earlier on my channel, this is actually the second copy of Megatron that I got. I bought an upgrade kit for my first copy of Transformers 1 Megatron, and because this is the Studio Series figure is the only deluxe figure of Transformers 1 Megatron that we've gotten, and it's the physically largest sized Transformers 1 Megatron figure that's been released by Hasbro. I got a second copy of it to use as D16 before he becomes Megatron. So far, Hasbro hasn't had any word on the Decepticons from Transformers 1 being released in Voyager class sized. I could be wrong. I haven't been really following news on characters from Transformers 1 as much as those from the Transformers Age of the Primes line, since that's been my focus, is the Studio Series 86 line and the Transformers Age of the Primes lines. But yeah, I really enjoy seeing Starscream standing next to Megatron. Even though I'm holding them up in the air, this is the height that they would be standing on if they were on a solid surface. Megatron is about 1, maybe 2 millimeters taller at the top of his head than Starscream is, and so I do like that Megatron is ever so slightly taller than Starscream. He's about half a head taller. Starscream's head comes up to Megatron's eyes, so yeah, fairly close to being half a head taller than Starscream. Starscream is how much taller Megatron is. And even if I were to fold the cannons on Megatron's back down, the top of Megatron's head comes to the top of Starscream's wingtips, just to give you an idea. Well, not quite. They are slightly taller, but the top of Megatron's head comes about here to the top of this outermost part of the wing, which is the hinge joint where it transforms. So yeah, fairly decent size. Fairly accurate sizes comparing these two to each other. So yeah, there's Megatron for a size comparison. For articulation, Starscream's head is on a ball joint. It's very tight, fresh out of the box, but yeah, he can spin his head left and right 360 degrees. If the wings weren't here, the arms have the potential to spin clockwise and counterclockwise 360 degrees on a ball joint. But of course the wings get in the way. Swivel joints in the bicep, hinged elbows, no wrist articulate. But one thing to be mindful about is that the joints on Starscream are tiny, so even if you handle it with care, there is potential due to their small size that they could end up breaking at some point, so just be mindful about that. From what I've seen from other reviews, Starscream isn't a fragile Transformers action figure, but Transformers who historically have had small joints that move large sections of arms or legs, those joints tend to get fragile over time, so just be mindful of that. Ball jointed hips, so the legs can go forward this far in robot mode. They can go back this far before it hits Starscream's backpack. Swivel joint at the top of the thigh. Hinged knees, which do clip into place, ace and lock into place. And this is where the make it or break, and below the knee joints, this is where the make it or break it deal with Transformers 1 Starscream is. Starscream does not have any ankle rockers, and his feet have been sculpted so that Starscream is in a permanent sprawl-legged position. If you were to stand Starscream upward, then his feet would not sit flat on the ground. So yeah, he is designed to have his legs sticking out in a V position, permanently like this. As far as articulation of Starscream's feet, if you unclip the heel spur for transformation, you can do that, and then the feet can move up and down that much at the toes. But yeah, there's no ankle joints or any foot articulation with Transformers 1 Starscream, so that's been one of the make it or break it deals with collectors, is lack of foot articulation. That's for Starscream. But yeah, overall, despite the lack of articulated joints in his feet, I still think Starscream's a fairly decent Transformers action figure. So without further delay, let's get Starscream transformed into his alt mode, and we will wrap up the review. Alright, and so here is Starscream in his alternate mode of a Cybertronian jet. And it's very accurate to how he appeared in Transformers 1, although there is a lot of there's a bulgy bottom half of the fuselage for Starscream's jet mode due to it being formed by his robot mode arms and legs. Me personally, I don't care about the arms hanging off the side because this is Starscream when he was on planet Cybertron, so he didn't necessarily have to be a robot in disguise. And that's one thing a lot of Transformers fans and collectors unfortunately overlook, is that when Transformers characters have a vehicle that's from planet Cybertron, not on Earth, they don't need to necessarily hide all of their body parts when they transform into their vehicle modes, because they don't necessarily have to be robots in disguise. Transforming into a vehicle mode on Cybertron, this is how I've always personally viewed it, is that it was just a faster means of getting away from your opponents, or in the reverse, attacking and charging at your opponents faster than running on your own feet. And so that's what I've always believed the Transformers used their alternate modes for. It wasn't to be robots in disguise. It was just a means of transformation. Transformation was just an extra ability, being able to move around quicker without having to use an actual transportation vehicle. And the Transformers didn't become robots in disguise until they arrived on Earth. That's one thing I think a lot of Transformers fans and collectors overlook, due to the fact that robots in disguise is the main catchphrase of the Transformers and defines why they transform into vehicles after they arrive on Earth. But before arriving on Earth, they didn't necessarily have to be robots in disguise. But yeah, as you can see, Starscream's alt mode, it's loosely based on his appearance from the Bumblebee movie. It kind of has the mashup of both his Tetrajet alt mode from Transformers Generation 1, along with being an Earth-based fighter jet found on Earth, where you got the cockpit and the nose cone here at the front of the jet. But then it kind of sort of mimics the Tetrajet mode with the reversed wings pointing forward, and then all the laser guns on there. And even from a profile view with the tail fin. Sorry about that interruption. But as I was saying, if you look here at the top of the tail fin, it's got that triangular shape looking at it from the front. And here, and I love how it looks almost like a miniature step pyramid here with its triangular shape leading up to the top of the tail fin. But yeah, overall, pretty decent looking Cybertronian jet mode. One thing to note about Starscream's transformation is that when you transform, the robot mode shoulders, which is what this part here at the front bottom section of the fuselage is that you have to attach the null rays to the tops of the shoulder joints, and you have to attach his blue laser gun to one side of the shoulder pieces before you bring them in together and then sandwich them together. If you try either, because there's no way of attaching them after you've completed Starscream's transformation. And yes, these two laser guns here that sit on the side of the main laser gun that Starscream uses in robot mode, those are the null rays. The null rays don't attach to the wingtips. There's no 5mm ports for them to attach to. And so they're kind of going for that. It's also a nod to the stealth fighter jet, the F-22 Raptor that Starscream transformed to in the live-action movies, where he didn't have any weapons hanging off his wings, kind of, sort of, at least with the wingtips. And unfortunately, where the null rays normally sit on the Seeker jets with most versions of Starscream and the other Seekers, had they null rays been done either on the side or bottom of the wings, they would have had to have drilled 5mm holes here on the bicep joint for Starscream's robot mode arm, or somehow attached a 5mm port here next to the ball joint that allows the wings to transform back and forth between robot mode and alt mode. One thing that I think doesn't really help is that officially Starscream's wings are supposed to sit like this, but they want to sag downward and they're not supposed to. The main section of the wing here is supposed to sit almost horizontally from surface level, and it's only the wing tips that are supposed to be tilted down, so just be mindful of that. So in that regard, Starscream's the wings of his jet mode are a little wobbly and don't really lock into place that well. Also, that is one thing to be mindful of, is that the wings do want to droop down, and if you droop them down far enough, they'll untab, and then you'll have to transform Starscream back into jet mode again. And one thing to note is that Starscream's legs, they transform kind of similar to the jets from the Combiner Wars line, where the legs end up, see if I can mimic it here with my fingers, where the legs end up sandwiching in, and the rectangular tabs that lock the legs into place. On my copy of Starscream, at least one of them refused to peg in properly, and I had to force it in, and it finally did snap, and when it did, all the pegs that hold the arms and legs together here on the back of Starscream's jet mode finally held into place. So just be mindful when you transform Starscream to look out for those pegs and that they don't give you trouble. So apart from some difficulty transforming overall, I do think Starscream did come out looking fairly impressive. One thing I do like about him is all the gray red paint apps that he has here in his jet mode. A lot of Transformers fans and collectors pointed out that, especially with the deluxe class size Transformers figures, a lot of them don't really have too many paint apps these days, but the Studio Series Transformers 1 Starscream action figure, he definitely has a lot of paint apps on him. All the parts on his wings, all the grays, the reds, and even the blue stripes on the wingtips, the gold, the amber yellow for his cockpit, that's all painted on here. If it wasn't painted on here, and if there was no paint on Starscream and it was all just surface level, he would be a very gray looking jet, so he'd actually look a lot like the Dark of the Moon version of Starscream. These intake vents, these red intake vents right here that sit on either side of the tail fin, those are made out of red plastic. His robot mode arms, his robot mode feet, and these two blue pieces right here next to the engines, which are basically shin guards for the back of his legs, gap fillers basically. Those are all blue plastic. The laser gun is also blue plastic. The parts on Starscream that are blue paint are the blue here on the front of his shins, and of course the blue stripes on his wingtips, as I said. The parts of him that are made out of red plastic along with the intake vents, this piece right here, which is where his robot mode head rests, that's red plastic as well. Same thing with the cockpit, the piece right here that the cockpit forms is red. This part right here that I just lifted up, that's red plastic. And his null rays, the elbow joints, and the transformation joints, and the jet engines, which end up becoming his heel spurs. Those are all done in gunmetal gray plastic. So yeah, a lot of paint apps here on Starscream. Visually, he's one of the most. He has the largest amount of paint apps and color variety that compared to the other Studio Series Transformers that I've looked at and that are out there right now. In terms of amount of paint given to a figure, I'd say Starscream is rivaled by Alpha Trion and Sentinel Prime. With half of the Transformers characters from Transformers 1 having either a uniform, singular, monochrome, or biochrome, where they own paint jobs, where one color is the main paint job, or two colors are the main paint job, such as Bumblebee being yellow, Elita 1 being magenta, and then Optimus Prime and being red and blue, while Megatron is gray and black. Seeing Starscream being red, white, and blue, it definitely makes him one of the more eye-catching of the Transformers 1 characters. And once again, for a size comparison, here he is next to Studio Series Transformers 1 Megatron, aka D16, in his tank mode. And yeah, like I said, in robot mode, Megatron was slightly taller. In terms of distance from front to back, Starscream's nose cone is slightly longer than the treads on Megatron's tank mode. But yeah, overall, they are roughly the same size deluxe class Transformers action figure, and I just love the dynamic between them. Unfortunately, there are no connection pay eggs here, so say you wanted to have Starscream pick up Megatron and carry him in tank mode. Starscream can technically perch on top of Megatron if you hold on to him, but if you let go, he will wobble to the side. So yeah, they weren't designed to connect to each other, but it would have been a nice play feature if they did have that ability to connect in vehicle mode. And Megatron ordered Starscream to carry him in the air, but he'd shoot him if he dropped him. So yeah, there's that size comparison. So for the final proverbial question, do I recommend getting the Transformers 1 on a Studio Series Deluxe Class Starscream figure and adding it to your Transformers collection? I do if you're a fan of Starscream and you're a fan of the Transformers 1 film. If you're a fan of only one of just either one of those, I still recommend getting Starscream, just because even though he had a short amount of screen time, if you're a Transformers fan, this is an established fact. You can't have Megatron without Starscream, because when you do, you start to ask where the other one is. Megatron's been blasting Starscream to bits for so many years, for so many times since 1984. Or fans have actually come to expect, is what I was trying to say, seeing Megatron blast Starscream away. So yeah, I do recommend getting Starscream if you're a fan of the Transformers 1 film, and if you're a fan of Starscream. If you're just a fan of Starscream, but not the Transformers 1 movie, as a standalone Transformers action figure by himself, Starscream is a fairly decent Transformers action figure, and though he's not entirely accurate to its design, as I said, he has quite a few similarities to the Transformers Bumblebee movie version of him. So for those out there who want a deluxe class-sized version of Bumblebee movie Starscream, the Transformers 1 Studio Series figure is the closest you're going to get to that, I personally believe. And if you're a fan of Transformers 1, Starscream is one of the, as I said, the more colorful and visually, mind you, he's one of the most interesting looking of the Transformers 1 action figures from the Studio Series line. So, not a must-have Transformers action, not a top-tier must-have Transformers action figure, because Starscream, as last time I checked, he's still selling for retail price on Amazon, but I do highly recommend getting him and adding him to your Transformers 1 collection. So thank you guys all so much for watching, and until next time, you guys, this has been the TF Geek, and please remember, stay safe, stay healthy, transform and roll out. Goodbye, everyone.